Today on Inside Look, Ted Haycraft, our cinema expert at Channel 14. Among his many expertises, we'll share some of the inside look into the world of film and cinema here in the Tri-State. That's next on Inside Look. Welcome to Inside Look. I'm Jeff Lyons with Ted Haycraft. Are you a cinemaphile today, or what? Guys?
I'm a man. As Bob Dylan has said recently in one of his songs, I have many multitudes.
I know you do. I was very intimidated about doing this because I feel like your knowledge is so deep, and I'm going to just skip along like a stone.
Well, that's better because that's the thing. I have everybody fooled. They think I'm very knowledgeable, but it's really surface.
Well, don't undersell yourself.
Well, I can explain why, but
okay.
Yeah.
Well, for context here, Ted Haycraft and I have worked together all of my career here at 14. You've been here since 1980,
yes.
Starting out in the film room. You've directed, you've done virtually everything out here, even appearing as our cinema chat expert on Midday.
Yeah, I've shot news. I've shot commercials. I've shot PSAs.
You were a roadie for basketball games back when we covered the Aces.
And even got to direct Marcia. That's always a treasured memory.
Yeah, so you've got so much. So we could either go down the broadcast line or the film line, comic books, art,
music,
pop culture, music, all of that. So I think I want to have you back many times. So this will be chapter 1.
Okay.
I always really associate you, though, as kind of our film. I think buff is too light of a term for you. I mean, you're like a film scholar, wouldn't you say? I mean, you know a lot about film.
I would, that's a nice name. I appreciate that. I don't know. I'm always, there's so much cinema and there's so much learning to do. Just recently, some of the people that you actually have known were 60 millimeter collectors, and I always was so envious and jealous that they had seen these movies in the 40s and 50s, and I was trying to catch up and keep up with the new ones. Now I'm in their position. Most of them have passed away. I think all of them have, and I'm the old man with that people there, and I talk to younger film fans, and they're going like, "How can I catch up?"
Yeah, and of course you were handling it here at the station for many years. Physical film, putting it up on the projector, cutting it, and all that kind of stuff.
Splicing, that was exciting.
Had your hands on it.
It was really interesting. My best friend since 5th grade, Jim Alexander, which we both know, and he has an interesting broadcast history. He turned the job down, and I took the job from Bob West, who I think still teaches at USI.
I think that's right. Yeah.
And it was a split shift on the weekends, and it's Saturday and Sunday, and I would have to come here on Sunday morning. I'd work late Saturday night, then I had to come back Sunday morning to load up Abbott and Costello or Superman or Shirley Temple films or whatever.
The Sunday morning lineup,
yes,
old cheap films,
and then come back on Sunday night and package up a lot of films for UPS to pick up the next day on Monday to bicycle them to different, like Wave or different stations.
Right.
So that was Jim didn't appeal to Jim, and I said, well, I just want to get my foot in the door. So Jim quickly got into Channel 7 when it was an ABC affiliate.
Yeah.
And met Randy Moore and everybody. So and it was just I was hot splicing and working with film, and I was helping run the film series out at U of E at the same time.
Right. Well, that's the thing about you that it's like where to begin, because you write, you read all the time, you watch all these films. So I want to just take a step back. Where did it start for you with film? Like, did you go to the movies a lot as a kid? I guess that's a dumb question.
I think this has been a good question. It's a good question because I've been, wondering that myself. And unfortunately, my dad's passed away. But I think it all stems from my father, my dad. My dad loved movies, and I was always wondering, why was I watching certain movies when I was a kid? I have a distinct memory of watching Marnie, an Alfred Hitchcock film. It's really just a very adult story dealing with adult themes, and I'm a little kid just mesmerized by this Sean Connery. It's one of Hitchcock's. It's an interesting Hitchcock film. Look it up, Marnie. But I'm like, I think I finally figured out. My dad was sitting behind me. I'd be on the floor or resting on a footstool or something, watching it, and I didn't act up. And then recently, Quentin Tarantino did this in his book he just put out recently. He said that he learned early on if he didn't talk a lot and he was quiet, the adults would take him to the movies along with them.
Right.
And he would see in movies that were really not geared for a kid.
Right.
And I think the same thing happened to me on drive-in movies and TVs. And then Dad would gather all. If I had two sisters and my mom, and we'd all get in the station wagon and go Sunset, West Side, Evansville, Family Drive-In.
The drive-ins,
yeah,
right.
There were like 4 or 5 different drive-ins. They all had their different personalities.
So this is like the late 60s, early 70s we're talking here.
I was born, November 58. And so, I think my first memory everybody always, what's the first movie you saw? And some people can actually answer that.
I can answer that, but you go ahead first.
I have 2 vague memories in my brain. I think my dad was finishing up his school or his work training at Louisville, and Mom was stuck with me, and she would take me to the theater down. I think it probably a walking neighborhood theater in Louisville or whatever. I have Pinocchio, and I looked it up, and it was a re-release in the early '60s when we were in Louisville, and the bounty burning, and the Marlon Brando Mutiny on the Bounty. And
Mutiny the Bounty. That's a way to dive right in. None of this kid stuff right off the bat.
No, of course not. And I think I said, I think I probably was one of these kids that just was quiet and just got sucked into it. Most kids are fidgety, and it's always, and kids can go to a theater at certain ages, but some you can take them too early or you take them too late, or it's always a kind of a guessing game.
Yeah.
But I think I also, going back to watching movies on TV, Dad, I think Dad would go out, go to your bedroom, go out, play, go to the backyard,
right.
Get out of here.
Go run around.
Right, but I didn't do that. So what was your first film?
My first movie, I think I was about 7 or 8. It was at the Ross Theater, and I saw the Aristocats. It was double feature, and then Song of the South, which I'm sure has been banished from all existence now. Uncle Remus and all that stuff.
That's another whole story there.
Yeah.
I just listened to a podcast on Song of the South. It's really interesting. It was doing better business in the 70s and the 80s than its initial release.
Is that right?
That's really fascinating.
Yeah. I just remember it because it was special. I hadn't been to the theater before, and the Ross was a great old neighborhood theater, and I was with a group of kids. Actually, my parents were at a party with the adults, and so they sent some poor teenager in a station wagon to take us to the Ross and get us out of their hair. I wasn't a quiet kid, as you probably guessed.
And we probably could have been there at the same time because I saw the Aristocats at the Ross and I saw Song of the South. At the Ross.
Well, I'm sure you did, and that kind of brings me to my point. So then, when did it become like a regular thing for you going to the movies? Like I saw the Aristocats, and then I think the next thing I saw was Close Encounters of the Third. No, I saw Gone with the Wind at the Victory Theater. It was re-released, and my grandmother insisted that I see Gone with the Wind, all 4 hours of it or whatever it was. And that made an impression too.
Well, speaking of the Ross, do you remember the Gone with the Wind portraits that were in the lobby?
Oh yes. It was really upscale.
They sat there for a long time. I guess back. I don't know how long they date back. They could have been on re-release, but these just beautiful portraits of Vivian Leigh and everything, and they were in the lobby of this plush lobby.
Right.
Here's a couple more stories that probably played into why I'm such a film fanatic. My dad, I don't know how, it's almost like a myth, but my dad was convinced that I had to see Shane, the Western.
Cliff Robertson?
No.
No, he was Shane on
on
Batman.
Batman.
I'm sorry. I get my pop culture turned around.
Alan Ladd.
You're right.
George Stevens directing. And it was, he took me to the drive-in to see Shane. I have a memory of the kid yelling, "Come back, Shane," at the end of that. That's about all I remember.
Right.
But I go, how could that be? That's 54 or 50. It's mid 50s, maybe early. It's not even widescreen. The cinema scope hadn't socked in on everything. I think it's a flat aspect ratio, the Academy ratio. But I'm getting already. But so it was either Mount Vernon. I think it was Mount Vernon, Indiana, that he took me. It was still on the bill at some drive-ins in the early 60s or mid 60s, and we moved here when I was 5 years old at Evansville, and I hadn't started school yet. And so we, can you imagine 5-6 year old kid driving, a long way,
Right.
and then seeing this movie, and I'm sure Dad impressed upon me how important and how great this film is. And so I think that's, and then I also remember him running around going, we need to see 2001 in Cinerama. We need to see 2001 in Cinerama. I don't think we did get to it. I think the closest was Louisville, but that was another thing that was impressed upon
About
my
1968 or so, so you
Yeah.
would have been about 10 years old.
Right.
Okay.
So-
And I didn't see it till college, and I was told, you have to see this film. You have to see Harold and Maude. There were all these films. I knew a guy kind of like you in college, not nearly as in-depth, but and saw some film in college, but I've always been amazed. And then when you do like Cinema Chat, and I know you've been on with David James on 2 Main Street, just the stuff about these films. So where does it all reside up here?
Well, it's really fascinating because now we have Google, we have the internet.
Sure, you have
database
broadband,
and how do you IMDb
streaming
and everything. You can look up anything and people we're talking about movies now with my friends. We just like, what year was that? Oh, just look it up. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I guess we were walking Google. We were walking search engines. Back in the day. In the
Well, you
flesh.
memorize stats, kind of
We-
like
we
other
tried-
guys would memorize baseball stats.
Yeah,
You would know stuff about
I
film.
and I quickly became without knowing maybe the word alter-ish or be the alter theory, but I did this with everything. I think another thing is I have a love for history, and that also comes from my father.
Yeah.
And I think I quickly gravitated to the creators and the behind the scenes and the industry, and the knowledge of that really fascinating, almost more than sometimes the product itself.
Well, let me ask you this, because that kind of leads into a question I had for you. So you go to a lot of movies even today. Are you able to really had the full suspension of disbelief, or are you looking at it critically so you can never fully enjoy a film? Like, do you get lost in a movie?
Yes
when
and
you
no.
go?
I do get lost if it's really good. I mean, if it does its work, if it does its magic, I could still get stunned or surprised. I wish I could think of an example recently where I was just, I know one. There's a new Tom Hanks, Robert Zemeckis film, and it's based on a comic book, a graphic novel. And it's all it is the camera is stationary the entire time in a room, in a house. And you see the house throughout the decades and centuries. And Tom Hanks' family moves in there, and you see him grow up and get married and everything. And the camera stays stationary. And so it's very obviously it's calling attention to the stuff. So you are not getting sucked in like a typical film. But at the end, the spoiler alert, at the end of the film, the camera finally moves, and it pivots around. And I remember going, I mean, it almost like it took me out of, because I had been there for over 2 hours,
You've
90
invested
minutes,
2 hours.
Just stay, it's on this one lockdown shot for the whole entire film.
Right.
And I got, and so that showed you how much I was concentrating and examining this film as it played out.
Yeah.
It's not getting great reviews, and I'm not sure if it succeeded what it wanted to do, but it was fascinating. I'd still get.
Yeah.
I mean, I love that when a film does that, where you actually can fill the room, or you fill with other people. Of course, we don't have that much anymore. But
Watching a film with a crowded
Right.
cinema is a lot of fun because there's still some reaction.
So
if
yes,
people look
that
up
does
from their
happen.
phones.
But I do if it gets really if it does a old style Hollywood where they don't want you to call attention to the film and want you to suspend disbelief and get sucked into the story. If it does it well, I'll do it. I can still do it. I think. Yeah.
So, like current films, like Wicked,
Mm-hmm.
the big blockbuster. What do you think about movies like that? All the hype and everything. Have you seen Wicked, or did you see it?
I did see it.
Okay.
I have Evan here, our fellow, one of our morning directors.
Right.
He goes to a lot of films too, and he's always asking. He gets frustrated at me because he wants me to, basically do thumbs up, thumbs down in a way. By the way, I just got a Siskel and Ebert shirt with.
I was going to ask about that too.
Anyway,
So okay.
But in the mail today, I can't wait to wear it somewhere. But anyway, he wanted my answer on Wicked, and I got to an early screening of that and I didn't see it with a crowd. And I think that would have made a big difference if I was there. I missed it. If you saw it with a crowd that were all there, that really would, and a crowd that wants to see the film, a crowd that's just there that night with their phones out and munching loud popcorn.
Right.
And I'm on the fence on Wicked. I love. The bottom line, Jeff, is I love cinema so much. I don't care what genre. The joke was at U of E when I was running the film series, and we ran and I would be up there running the projector on we went out of our way, Kerry Minton and John Baker and some people, and all of us went out of our way to give the best presentation we could. And we did CinemaScope. We actually had the lens. We had the correct aspect ratio for widescreen films. People. The joke was back then that Ted loves cinema so much he loves a black leader going through a projector. he enjoys
the countdown too. 5, 4, 3, 2.
But I was on the fence with Wicked. I didn't dislike it. I didn't really like it. Musicals. I love musicals. I mean, like I said, I love any genre. So I may have to go back again. Maybe get in there with a crowd or go when they do the sing along versions.
Right. Well, I didn't. I wasn't there I went after the day after Thanksgiving, and my daughter sat next to me, and of course she's seen it. She had seen it on Broadway. My son had seen it on Broadway.
Yes.
I'm sure I paid for it, but anyway, they got to see it, the actual cinematic thing. But anyway,
did you like it?
I did, but I was kind of like, oh man, they all were singing along, and she was prompting me, like that. Now that's the Cowardly Lion, because I thought it was. Anyway, we won't get into the weeds on that, but the thing that happened to me that you just mentioned, I did get sucked in, and because oftentimes when I'm looking at, I'm like, I wonder. What she had for breakfast this morning, or what's
how do they
right
pull that
behind
effect off? Or how did that camera do?
And after a while, it was just a given. Oh well, okay, the witch is going to fly, and I wasn't like looking for a wire. And I don't know. I took a few film classes in college and did some film, film like shooting it. And I don't know. I mean, I'm certainly not. An expert by any stretch, but knowing a few things, it kind of spoiled it for me for many years. I would just kind of look and not really get sucked in. So I got sucked in by Wicked.
Yeah, I think if it does its job, I think, and you are a willing participant, I think it still works. And then also each director, there's certain agendas, the directors have, and some of my favorite directors do call attention to themselves,
right,
and which are some of my favorite directors, and then some that don't want you, they believe in the old Hollywood studio, they don't want the camera, call attention to the camera move or this or that. It's all done for you to get sucked into it,
So if you can give one piece of advice to somebody going to a movie to enjoy it to the fullest, what would it be?
Well, first and foremost, just turn the phone off. Turn it totally off.
Okay.
And sit in the middle, and sit. Don't sit. I don't understand the back row people. Other than I do that with IMAX because it just
It's overwhelming.
It's so big. Where you're not shifting your head, and you're sitting in the middle, and actually, I'm starting to believe. I have a friend of mine, another friend of ours, a fellow broadcaster, Todd Fox, and a comic book artist. He will go out of his way to not pay attention to trailers. The trailers, and that's the industry term for preview.
Oh, sure, yeah. And they load them up too, about a half hour's worth, before any show.
And I'm starting to see trailers give away too much. They always have. I guess I didn't really realize that. I love trailers. And of course, back in the pre-internet days, when we would get a little smidgen of info, we loved it.
Right.
We just, a magazine article or whatever. Now it's just like I'm almost overloaded. I'm going the opposite direction. I don't want to know anything. So I think the more you don't know about what you're going in to see,
right,
that you're also.
So you have no expectation. Yes. You're just like,
expectation is a really interesting thing. My dad and I used to talk about that all the time because I think it plays havoc with me. Some films I really love now, I went in with super expectations that could not be matched. There's no way that it was going to match what I was expecting, and I was let down. And then I start watching it again. I'm like, oh no, this is good. I really love it. And I have a handful of those kind of films.
All right. Well, Teddy, this has been interesting. Now, we got so many more things to talk about.
We're done?
Well, I know. Yeah. We try to hold them at about 20 minutes.
Okay,
we're thinking of somebody driving down the street. Please.
One last ingredient.
It's not a hard 20.
Okay. The last ingredient about me becoming a film fanatic. So I call it the Wonder Years. From 2nd grade to 8th grade, we lived over by Good Shepherd School, and Evansville Drive-In was in walking distance.
No, right, on Theater Drive.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they had an indoor rows of seats and an audio booth, piped into these rows of seats in the concession stand area. One of the old film guys I referenced earlier, they gave me a good reason why that was there. But you could go in there and sit down and enjoy the film. It was angled at the right place,
Right.
and the audio was coming in.
But
So-
you're looking through a window out at a screen across the parking lot,
Yes,
basically.
right. Yeah,
Okay.
and you could see without the cars obscuring
Sure.
the vision. And so we were able, I think the first time my parents gave us the money, and a friend and I would drop this off, there was a door up by where the cars came in. There was a door you could walk in, and then I could go in and sit down, get your concessions, and sit down and watch them. So I got to a point where I guess I was telling my parents I was going to the drive-in to see, and I don't know, because I can't believe I don't know how I should admit to this, but we started sneaking into it.
Well, I was going to ask that too. So
There was
okay.
a whole side of the fence not there. It was a soybean field,
Right.
and it was it was an operation, and we get in there and we
Right.
get in there. And there was a security guard, Dewey, and he was an old man, and he could evade him easily. So we go in there. So I saw a lot more films, and I don't know how I was pulling this off because I saw a lot of things I shouldn't. Films like Easy Rider and a lot of
Midnight
crazy-
Cowboy
and stuff like
some
that
of those.
at the drive-in that I shouldn't have probably saw. And again, kicking my my attraction to this stuff because I was
Yeah.
like trying to figure it out and what is this all about and what's going on here.
Yeah.
So that was another ingredient. I guess I'm not too proud of it, but it was.
It's all right. But we can let bygones be bygones.
Yes.
I mean, the Evansville Drive-In certainly didn't go under because you weren't paying
Yeah.
your 75 cents to get in.
Right.
So
That was it.
So we got to make an agenda for next time.
Yes.
So because we haven't even scratched the surface of film. And,
Yeah.
and I
And
got
I
to.
got comic books and music.
I
and
know, we got
history
all of it.
and just working here at Channel 14.
Right. Maybe we'll hit that up next time. But I appreciate you giving at least a little inside look into the Ted Haycraft
I hope they're all
School of
still awake
Film.
out there.
Oh, they are. They're not going to drive off the road here if they're listening to it in their car. But Teddy, I appreciate you
Yeah.
doing this, and it won't be our last time together.
Great. I always have a great time talking
Okay.
about it.
This has been Inside Look with Ted Haycraft. I'm Jeff Lyons. Thanks for watching. Be sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you can listen to the podcast wherever you get your podcast.